In this lesson, I will teach you how to apply all of those principles of color theory to makeup. And let's start with the most important part, the skin. If you look closely at your hand, you will see that it's not monochromatic and consists of a certain set of different pigments. And these pigments are melanin, carotene, and hemoglobin. These three components and their proportions in the skin define its shade. The first pigment appears mainly in response to sunlight and has a brown shade. The second pigment has a yellow shade and, when dominating in the skin, gives it a yellow undertone. The third pigment has a red shade, and when it dominates in the skin, it gives the skin a pink undertone. In these photos on the right, you will see numerous examples of different shades of skin. In the first left vertical row, the skin is quite dark and melanin obviously dominates over other pigments. In the middle vertical row, you can see examples of yellow skin, where undeniably dominates carotene. And finally, in the right vertical row of photos, the skin has an obvious pink shade due to the dominance of hemoglobin. To make it even more clear, here are more examples of different skin shades of the light skin. In the first photo on the left, the clear example of skin with the dominating yellow pigment is shown. It is very well distinguishable in comparison to the second picture, where skin has a stronger pink shade. In the third picture, you'll see an example of a widespread neutral shade of skin. The skin of this model looks more pink in comparison to the skin of the model from the first photo. But if you compare the same girl with the model from the second picture, her skin will seem more yellow. It means that proportions of yellow and pink pigments in her skin are almost equal. In the fourth photo, you can see another widespread shade of skin, which is olive. Simply compare the shade of skin of the girl from the fourth photo to the previous ones, and you can clearly see that it is not similar to any of those previous shades. And here you can see examples of skin from very light to dark in the top row of photos. As with light skin, dark skin can have neutral, olive, pink, or yellow undertone, as seen in the bottom row of pictures. It is very important to learn how to distinguish those different shades of skin. And it's best to do it in a soft daylight, because artificial light or intensive daylight might distort your perception of colors. In order to define a dominating pigment, I usually evaluate several body parts: face, neck, chest, shoulders, and hands, if they're visible. And I do that for one simple reason. Usually on face you might have some spots or discolorations that are not present to the major parts of the body. That's why when looking at all of the other parts, I can really define which pigment is dominating to the most of the body. And this is what I will take into consideration when choosing appropriate shade of foundation or any other colors for makeup. And those discolorations on smaller parts actually need to be neutralized, but I will talk in more detail about this part a bit later. So now I want you to try and to identify your dominating pigment of the skin. And then I will show you how to use this information to be able to identify basically any skin shade of any person. For example, I have a yellow skin with a hint of olive. Try now to figure out what is your dominating pigment. So once you know your dominating pigment, it's gonna be easy to distinguish a pigment of a skin practically of any person. For that, you only need to compare shade of your skin to the skin of the other person. So for that, I place my hand close to the skin of my model and see how similar or how different my skin is from hers. with my model, for example, it's easy to see that her skin perfectly matches mine and has also a hint of olive and yellow undertone. So we are from the same family. It's easy. But even if your skin on your hand or somewhere on your body doesn't really match your model's skin, then it's easy also, because you will know which undertone to eliminate, and then you'll have to only choose from 3 other undertones. Basically, for example, if the skin of my model wouldn't match mine, then I would consider it either neutral or pink, and then I just need to see how much pink undertone the person has to identify if it's more pink or more neutral. Now try to do the same with all your friends and family members. The more you train your eye on the perception of different skin shades, the quicker and the easier it will be for you to define different shades of different people. So basically, you need to understand what your skin tone is, and then either you will see similar olive, yellow, pink or neutral shade, or you will see a different shade on other people. So what makes it even easier? When you see that the shade of skin is different from yours, the other tone will actually amplify itself, and the dominant pigment of the other skin will become even more visible. So basically, it's not hard to identify if the skin tone is similar to yours or different, and if it's not different, then it's going to be quite easy for you to understand which pigment is dominating. I hope after this lesson it will be a little bit easier for you to do that. If you're wondering why any of this is important, I can explain. You will need this skill to choose a matching shade of foundation for yourself or for any other person you might be working with. Now, to wrap up my talk about skin, I want to show you how to use principles of color theory to neutralize different discolorations of the skin. If you put 2 opposite colors close to each other, they will actually intensify. But if you mix those 2 opposite colors, the effect will be totally different. They will neutralize each other. You can use this principle to neutralize any undesirable pigment of the skin, such as dark brown spots, redness, dark circles around the eyes, which might have sometimes bluish or more lilac undertone. First, you need to determine the pigment of the area that you want to neutralize, and then think of the opposite color from the color wheel, and this will be the color that will neutralize this problem area. There are 4 main shades of discoloration of the skin, and therefore there are 4 main shades of corrective colors. Green is mostly used to neutralize red pigment of the skin, such as spots, inflammations, and so on. Yellow and violet are also positioned on the opposite sides of color wheel and therefore neutralize each other. Sometimes dark circles under the eyes or bruises in their early stages of healing can have a violet shade. To neutralize this purple undertone, it's necessary to use a yellow color. Skin acquires a yellow shade in the final stages of healing bruises. And also, the dark yellow pigment can be found on the skin in the form of pigment spots. Therefore, to neutralize this unwanted shade, it's best to use a purple shade of concealer. And one other common shade of discoloration is blue. It can sometimes appear around the eyes if veins are seen through a thin skin. You can neutralize the shade with a warm pink shade of concealer. You have likely seen the palettes with different concealers such as green, yellow, lilac, peach. These concealers usually can be used in their pure form only to hide skin's major bruises. But most of the skin discolorations are actually not so intensive and the pigment is much softer. So therefore I take these colorful concealers and mix them in with a more natural shade. Therefore, I will give the concealer the hint of green, yellow or pink to neutralize the problematic area, but the color itself won't be too dominant. Now let's move on to color combinations in makeup. First, you need to determine which colors dominate in the appearance, and then also determine the color contrast. This means that it is necessary to look at the light or dark shades that are present in the appearance of each person. When there is no contrast between skin color, hair color, and eye color, and they are very similar shades, then people with this appearance mostly try to avoid contrasts in makeup as well, and prefer to use quieter combinations of colors, muted shades of eyeshadow, blushes, and lipsticks. However, if there is a stronger contrast between a shade of hair and the skin, such as very light skin and very dark hair, as you can see in this example here, these people tend to feel more comfortable with a combination of more contrasting shades in makeup and prefer more saturated, pure shades of color. Secondly, it is important to pay attention to what shades prevail in a person's appearance, warm or cool. We have already talked about skin shades, but I will add one final tip. Yellow skin color is the only one that is considered warm. The remaining pink, olive, and neutral skin shades have more of a cool undertone. Also, it's important to take into consideration shade of hair, the color of the eyes, and the natural pigment of the lips. They can be either cool or warm. When choosing colors in makeup, you can create either a harmonious look or, on contrary, emphasize certain shades in the appearance of a person you're working with. If you want to create a harmonious look, then for people with cooler shades of skin, hair, and eye color, you might want to match cooler shades of lipstick, blushes, or eyeshadows, like pinks, purples, etc. And if natural color of hair, eyes, or lips is warmer, you might want to choose warmer shades of lipsticks, blushes, or eyeshadows, like peachy, orange, or golden brown. Or if you want to enhance certain shades in anyone's appearance, then you can choose colors in makeup using the principles of contrast. This way, for people with cooler shades of hair, lips, and eyes, you can actually match warmer shades of lipsticks, blushes, or eyeshadows. And for those with warmer shades of hair, eyes, or lips, you can match cooler shades of makeup. For example, peach blush will enhance blue color of the eyes perfectly, or pink blush will make brown eye color really stand out. When choosing eyeshadows, I use the principles of color theory as well. If I choose an eyeshadow that is similar to the color of the eyes, then I'm creating a harmonious look and makeup will look quite natural. For example, for brown eyes, I use golden brown range of eyeshadows. For green eyes, I use golden brown and muted shades of green. For blue eyes, a blue-gray spectrum, and so on. However, this could also look quite boring and the color of the eyes simply won't be enhanced. So if I want to emphasize the color of an iris, then it's worth trying to use complementary colors from an opposite side of a color wheel. For brown eyes, any shades of violet, gray, blue, or green will be quite contrasting. For green eyes, you can use shades of violet, blue, pink, or gray as well. While for blue and gray eyes, golden peach and orange shades will provide a stronger contrast and therefore enhance the color of the eyes. Here, you can see contrasting shades for blue, brown, and gray eyes. It shouldn't be difficult to see why these shades will emphasize the color of an iris based on the knowledge of color theory and where that each particular eye color is found on a color wheel in comparison to the shades of the chosen eyeshadows. Of course, this doesn't mean that it's always necessary to use very bright and saturated colors and the example on the top picture. These colors are more suited for more vibrant creative works. Even with softer and more muted shades of eyeshadows, as in the example on the lower picture, one can perfectly enhance the eye color and make eyes look more expressive. You can still see the difference in shades like green, blue, purple, but the makeup done with these shades will not look too dominating, as for example when using bright and contrasting colors. This is where the theoretical part comes to an end. And starting from the next lesson, I will demonstrate you various makeup techniques, which I hope you have been looking forward to.